So I don't know if we're gonna split this video up into two parts, have whatever on one side and another thing on another side, mostly because when it comes to this player, I feel like I actually do have enough fuel to make a full-length video about him, because today we are heading over to the Winnipeg Jets and talking about potential free agent to be Brenden Dillon, and the apparent interest that he himself might have in signing with the Vancouver Canucks. Now, if you wanted to go over Brenden Dillon, the reason I am, too familiar with him in his game this year is because I did have him on fantasy. The amount of times I dropped and signed Brenden Dillon from free agency because he was one of the top guys in my league this year is kind of nuts. And I said this throughout the course of 23-24, but my fantasy league this year, run by Hot Take Hockey, was kind of wild. It was the Hockey YouTubers League, and for some reason, John from Hot Take Hockey made hits and blocks worth almost the same as goals and assists. One block was worth one assist, and one hit was worth half an assist. It was kind of crazy how everything worked in that league. But as a result, you had some of the top guys in the league be these shot-blocking, big physical dudes like Mario Ferraro, Jacob Trouba, Jeremy Lauzon. These guys were the top guys in my league for some reason, and Brenden Dillon was, for a good chunk of the season, a part of that group as well. So let's talk about the scoop here, go over what Dillon has been up to and why he's relevant in Vancouver Canucks news today. 33 years old, from Surrey, BC, and you'll note that he's a big dude, 6'4", 225, left-handed defenseman. Now, I'm not saying that he's like Nikita Zadorov, Tyler Myers big, but he is big. And when it comes to Brenden Dillon, this recent season he had 20 points in 77 games played. He's always roughly hovered around that 20-ish point mark, even in his San Jose Sharks days. He doesn't really produce much in the playoffs, but he does get some significant playing time, and he delivers some hits. He also was, as I had said, a shot-blocking guy who really made his presence known throughout the season for getting in front of pucks and not being afraid to get involved physically. I mean, the entire fight where his hand got sliced open in the playoffs earlier, I don't want to say he's that extreme all the time, but it is kind of something that he's willing to do. It's a service he provides. And when it comes to the latest update with Dillon and the Canucks, he did have himself an interview with Donnie and Dolly from 2 days ago, or yesterday, excuse me, where he went out there and talked about the idea of signing with the Vancouver Canucks. As we had said, he's from Surrey, so you always got to bring up the local boy conversation. And I'm going to go over to this article on NHLTradeRumors.me, written by David Littman. Pending UFA, Brenden Dillon admits it would be so cool to play for one Jets rival, because the article has the quotes from Dillon written out and transcribed, so it's easier for us to follow along. Screenshot it, put it on the screen, etc., etc. So, when you take a look at this, it actually says here that he's from New West, so Surrey, New West, I mean, it's a bridge away, so you kind of get where we're going with here. I mean, most people say they're from Vancouver anyway, so if you scroll down here into the piece, this is what Dillon goes out there and says. I think I could speak on account for every guy in the NHL who is from BC. How cool would that be to play for your hometown team? You see the way that hockey's grown there during my 13 seasons? It's so cool to watch. The BC boys are impacting the game. Anytime you go into free agency, you hear the horror stories, whether it's guys pricing themselves out or not wanting to go to a certain place or a certain team. For me, I'm really open and excited, and I'm just an open book going into July 1st. So, there you go, there's the commitment to Winnipeg being thrown out the window, but of course, Brenden Dillon is a free agent, so he kind of has the right to say whatever he wants. The 6'4" left-shot blue liner just finished his third straight year for the Jets, as the 33-year-old comes off a 4-year, $3.9 million AAV expiring contract. I think for myself and my role, I think I've continued to show what I can really do. This year was fun to be able to affect things offensively a little bit more, Dillon said, registering a career high with 8 goals this season while playing his usual solid defense, registering a plus-minus rating of 20 with 241 hits while playing 18.44 per game for Winnipeg. And so this is the idea. Brenden Dillon signing as a free agent with the Vancouver Canucks. He apparently would really like it, and if the Canucks are also interested in grabbing one of these big left-shot D-men, if Nikita Zadorov ends up leaving, this actually looks like a pretty okay replacement. And I'm not going to say, Brenden Dillon is going to be the #1 playoff performer like Nikita Zadorov was, but later on in today's show, I did want to go over Zadorov and his contract numbers, talk about his dollar amount, because it is getting outrageously high. In fact, we can go out there and give a big preview to that, but Nikita Zadorov, I mean, Dalibor said this, people are thinking 5 to 7 years, close to $6 million. I don't think the Canucks can do that. He's kind of pricing himself out. So if Brenden Dillon, who may not have that same pizzazz in the postseason, but who has a similar, maybe relatively safer, regular season productivity compared to Zadorov, is willing to sign in Vancouver for a much cheaper deal, honestly, I take that, because when you take a look at the structure of the left side of the Canucks defense, you have Quinn Hughes. Okay, he's making a lot of money, but he debatably could be worth so much more. You have Carlsson, who is going to be here for a while. He's signed on till the end of 2026, and he's making $3.25, and that's about it. Everybody else is a free agent or an RFA, so Friedman, not guaranteed the staying. Ian Cole, not guaranteed the staying. Zadorov, not guaranteed the staying. The team has 3 defensemen for next year. And when you consider that Filip Hronek may or may not come back, who really knows? Nikita Zadorov may or may not come back, who really knows? Tyler Myers, honestly, I feel like Myers does come back. Like, just my hunch, I'm kind of getting that vibe that Myers will probably take some sort of a discount, but who really knows? If you say Ian Cole's not coming back either because the guy was terrible in the playoffs, especially in that Edmonton series, then it opens the door for a guy like Brenden Dillon to be brought in here as a stabilizing piece of that left side, and potentially for cheaper too. Not knowing what you have on right side, I mean, things can change up whenever, but if you have Quinn Hughes, Soucy, and Brenden Dillon on your left, that's pretty good. Dillon and Soucy also fit that left-handed big dude mold because Dillon is 6'4". So if Patrick Allvin and Rutherford were interested in a guy like this, I mean, it would kind of fit with the mold of guys they've been getting a bunch the past year anyway. It fits. Ian Cole, Zadorov, Myers, Soucy. The big quadruple towers of physical guys who can play well in their own zone for the most part. That was kind of the identity that we had seen of this team after all those guys were acquired. So if you lose out on a few of them, some of them might be too expensive, why not just get another one of these guys in the same mold who wants to play here and who might be cheaper? So for Brenden Dillon, because there isn't really that same playoff superhero type status attached to him, I could honestly see him being a worthwhile thought for the Vancouver Canucks if they were considering potential Ian Cole and Zadorov replacements. Maybe he can take some sort of discount too because he's from New West. Pull some of that Johnny Tavares love on ya. But either way, if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Brenden Dillon talking about potentially leaving your team for the Vancouver Canucks. How are your opinions on how he played this season? I thought he was pretty solid. I mean, there isn't really too much to complain about, I feel, with Brenden Dillon. If you wanted to talk about foot speed, I guess that's there. Offensive productivity, that's there too, but still, that's not the role that he plays, you know? He's never really been that offensive guy. He's a lot more cut from that Carlsson, Soucy, Ian Cole mold of guys who just go out there and play the game the right way in their own zone, at least when they're not putting the puck in their own net. So Jets fans, let me know your thoughts. Canucks fans as well, what are your opinions on the idea of Brenden Dillon coming over to Vancouver? Do you think this could be a Rutherford and Allvin type guy, especially with the fact that he's already interested in potentially coming over? What are your opinions on him being a Canucks signee? And what are your thoughts on the contract? He was making 3-point-something mil. Not that much. He is 33 though, so there may not be too much of a desire to get a huge, big money dollar amount deal like that Nikita Zadorov that we just talked about and that we're going to talk about a little bit more as the day goes on. So, thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.